Hi, so this topic will be about LPS. Well, what's LPS and what's that got to do with herbs? All will be revealed. So if you look down the bottom of the slide, here I'll arrow it for you. Lipopolysaccharides are a pro-inflammatory endotoxin that is a component of the outer membrane of gram-negative bacteria. So we have in our gut gram-negative bacteria, and when they die, we get the production of LPS. And as you can see in the diagram, if you've got a leaky gut, or not even necessarily a leaky gut, as I'll show you soon, LPS can get into your bloodstream. Now, because this slide, this image is particularly looking at the context of LPS in the brain, it's showing how that can then disturb your various neurotransmitter balance and indeed affect your mood. And I'll show that that's been proven, clinically, that LPS can do that. So it's gram-negative bacteria. So we have each individual person has a different mix of gram-negative bacteria and has more of them or less of them. And there are certain types of gram-negative bacteria, particularly if they gain the ascendancy, they have an LPS that is more inflammatory. So there's variability in the bacteria that can produce LPS in terms of whether they're gram-negative or not. And then there's variability in how pro-inflammatory the LPS is that they produce. So it's not just about the brain, although that's where a lot of the research focuses. I think LPS can be an issue in any type of chronic inflammatory disorder, including autoimmunity, and probably contributes to the development of cancer, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really good to address LPS and reduce it as much as possible in our gut, firstly, and then secondly, in our bloodstream. So one of the areas that is receiving a lot of research attention is the endotoxin hypothesis of neurodegeneration. And yes, here I'm talking specifically about Alzheimer's disease. It's what's featured particularly, as you can see in the abstract on the left. So what are they basically saying? This hypothesis is that endotoxin causes or contributes to neurodegeneration. So in a healthy person, blood plasma levels of endotoxin are normally low, but they get elevated during infections, gut inflammation, gum disease, and indeed they're shown to be elevated during neurodegenerative disease. So if you've got anywhere where your gut is inflamed or leaky, you're going to get more endotoxin. But it's more than that. If you have an unhealthy diet, you might have more gram-negative bacteria. You'll produce more endotoxin that way. Leaky gut, obviously. But also other aspects of your diet can influence your endotoxin levels, as I'll show you soon. And when they add endotoxin at the levels that are found in disease into the blood of healthy people, it does induce systemic inflammation and activation of the microglial cells in the brain that are thought to be major contributors to neuroinflammation in the brain, and indeed their activation is thought to contribute to Alzheimer's disease. And endotoxin in the bloodstream does indeed promote amyloid beta and tau aggregation, which are the two key pathological processes observed in Alzheimer's disease, and neuropathology in general. And in patients with Alzheimer's disease, brain endotoxin levels and blood endotoxin levels are elevated. So LPS, endotoxin, same thing. I'm using them interchangeably. So this was a clinical trial that they did. They got a group of healthy people and they injected them because you don't absorb that much orally. So they injected them with LPS and observed their sickness behavior. Oh, I feel so bad, I need to go into a corner and die, sort of thing. That's what they mean by sickness behavior. Positive mood, anxiety, and fatigue. And look what they observed compared to placebos. Mood dropped 2 hours after receiving an injected dose of LPS. Anxiety, again, went up substantially in the 2 hours. And as you can see in D, so did fatigue. And as you can see in A, so did sickness behavior. So quite a bit of what we might experience when we're depressed or when we're anxious or when we feel sick or tired could be LPS driven. So this was an interesting study that looked at the level of endotoxin that gets into our bloodstream depending on a particular diets. And what we should keep in mind here is that LPS is quite fat soluble. And if you have a high fatty diet, and especially high in saturated fats, as those fats get absorbed into your body and into your bloodstream, the LPS, because it's soluble in those fats, hitches a ride. And this was what was shown. So a high saturated fatty acid breakfast, look at the jump up in blood endotoxin levels, blood LPS levels. If it was more like a Mediterranean diet, high in monounsaturated fatty acids, it went up, not as much, about half as much, but still went up. And if you look at a low-fat, high complex carbohydrate diet, it went up only a teensy-weensy bit. And if you look at a low-fat, high complex carbohydrate diet that also had some omega-3s in it, it went down. So it does suggest that the type of diet we have is going to influence how much endotoxin gets into our bloodstream. So there's one study I saw where they gave people, I think it was about 100 mils of cream, and their endotoxin levels, dairy cream, cow cream, and their endotoxin levels went up sky high a couple of hours afterwards. We do have a natural protection against endotoxin. We have a few, actually, and I like to talk about this one. It's called IAP, intestinal alkaline phosphatase. There are 4 types of alkaline phosphatase in the human, produced by the human body. And the intestinal IAP is produced by enterocytes in the small intestine and is secreted into the lumen, but also into the blood. And being secreted in the lumen, it's in the stool. And IAP expression is defective in many gastrointestinal-related disorders, such as inflammatory bowel disease and metabolic syndrome. And supplementation of IAP improves these disorders. And why are we talking about IAP in this context? Because IAP detoxifies LPS and also protects the gut barrier integrity and regulates gut microbial communities. But in the particular context I'm mentioning, it detoxifies LPS. So having a healthy gut wall with healthy enterocytes that are well-nourished and protected and well-nourished by, obviously, good fiber producing short-chain fatty acids, you'll get better levels of IAP. Unfortunately, IAP is at the moment a very expensive experimental only enzyme. So you can't supplement with it as yet. You've got to make your gut wall healthy to produce it. And indeed, you can get probiotics that contain healthy bacteria that produce IAP as well. So you can get indirectly supplemented that way. Now, another natural defense against LPS is bile. What it does is it splits LPS into non-toxic fragments. And that mechanism is strengthened by enterohepatic circulation, which our bile does. It also, interestingly, bile has a similar detoxifying detergent action that plays a role in our host defense against infectious agents that have that outer lipoprotein structure. So particularly, for example, your gram-negative bacteria. And so well described is this protective effect of bile. It's been called the physicochemical defense system that operates in our gut. So bile deficiency and the consequent endotoxemia, endotoxin in the bloodstream, are thought to be important components in the pathogenesis of inflammatory brain disorders, including, for example, neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's disease. So in summary, what can we do against LPS? We need to have a healthy microbiome with less abundance of the key gram-negative bacteria that produce more toxic LPS, and a healthy diet to support this, with not too much saturated fats and more omega-3 type fatty acids, because of that trial I showed you, which suggested that saturated fats increase LPS and omega-3 fats decrease it. We don't want to have a leaky gut. We want a strong gut barrier. And if we have a healthy gut wall, that will also increase our production of intestinal alkaline phosphatase. And we need a healthy bile flow, and we need adequate intestinal alkaline phosphatase, as mentioned, which can also be achieved by a well-selected probiotic. So healthy bile flow. What is the herb that I rely on in my clinic every day, and it never fails, and it's been clinically proven? It's the only herb that's been clinically proven to increase bile flow. That herb is the globe artichoke. So it is one of our key defenses against endotoxin. Bitter herbs in general increase bile flow. So we can suggest perhaps a radical hypothesis that taking bitter herbs every day will protect against neurodegenerative diseases, but especially the globe artichoke, to achieve healthy bile flow, if needed, is a great option. And in general, we can also use herbs to improve the gut wall barrier and create a more healthy microbiome that's producing less LPS. And we do that by the bowel flora protocol. That will give the more healthy microbiome. And if we add the barrier version of that, that will then help improve the gut wall barrier as well. Now, information on that particular protocol, I have mentioned it before, but it's available in my book on functional herbal therapy. If the gut wall needs healing, then we have herbs like licorice, meadowsweet, chamomile, golden seal, gotu-kola, and slippery elm that can help there. And also part of our gut wall barrier is an immune barrier, and we can improve our gut innate immune responses with echinacea root, astragalus, and medicinal mushrooms. And it's yet another reason why I eat mushrooms every day, because what's in normal mushrooms that we eat in terms of innate immune response effects is quite similar to what's in medicinal mushrooms. So as well as taking medicinal mushrooms in supplements, eat mushrooms as often as you can. Thank you.